The Mac Pro is gone, and the quiet weight it slipped out says everything about what Apple has done to the very idea of personal computer. For 20 years it was the one machine keeping Apple tied to the old definition of what a computer even is. A thing you open, fix and upgrade yourself. The legendary cheesy grater, released 7 years ago, was a landmark return to that idea. Because every time Apple drifted toward the sealed box, the Mac Pro pulled it back. In 2013, they swapped it to the trash can.
Can't innovate anymore, my ass.
And it went so badly that Apple did something it almost never does. It publicly apologized and promised in advance to make it right. Then, on March 26, 2026, they simply deleted the Mac Pro page from their website. Without a word. By then it hadn't been updated in 3 years. The easy explanation: why keep a big expensive Mac Pro around when there is the compact Mac Studio? But now, not a single Apple computer is a computer in the old sense. Back then, dropping modularity sparked a revolt. Now, silence. What changed in Apple since then? And more importantly, what changed in us? Look at how it's made. Thousands of holes drilled into a single block of aluminum. This is that legendary honest kind of beauty, where the engineering isn't hidden away but put on display and made beautiful. You see it best next to ordinary towers, where the cooling is shamefully tucked behind mesh screens stuck on with magnets. People joked it looked like cheese grater, but in the design community it was without question seen as a very beautiful object. Then there is a functional. You pop the case off and single move, which makes complete sense because the whole point of this machine is that you're going to be getting inside it. It's a modular computer with slots for graphic cards, memory and capture cards. You just open it up and swap things yourself, not in the nearest Apple authorized service center, and of course not in some configurator on website. Years earlier, Apple have tried to turn the Open Mac Pro into a closed compact system, the infamous trash can, which we'll come back to. The cheese grater was Apple making amends. Expect this time it didn't last long. 2020, Apple unveiled its incredible Apple Silicon and promised a swift, complete switch to it. The last machine to make the jump was our Mac Pro on the M3 Ultra, and it broke the computer. How do you like a cheese grater that not longer works with Parmesan? Absurdissimo. Apple Silicon doesn't work with external GPUs, which means you can drop in a graphic card. On top of that, the RAM is now unified memory, soldered onto the chip. What you left with is a stage, prop version of expandability. Then 3 years with no updates. And finally, on March 26, 2026, Apple pulled the Mac Pro page from its site. Remember how loudly they apologized 9 years earlier? They gathered journalists, admitted their mistake, begged Pro users not to leave, promised to bring it all back. And now the machine they once brought back so deliberately was taken down in silence. And what's even more telling, nobody really paid much attention. A lot of important things happened without your noticing. Right now, for instance, dozens of companies you never heard of are buying and even reselling your personal data. This is a sponsored segment, but it's a serious subject. I come from a country where people run into this more than most. My data, including some very sensitive data, has leaked many times. At one point, I even bought my own data of the dark web purely out of curiosity, and it was all there, including a list of addresses with the dates of my food and groceries orders. There are legal ways to fight this, but the data spreads across hundreds of companies so quickly that doing it by hand is basically hopeless. That's why Incogni exists, the sponsor of this video. It finds these companies and demands on your behalf that they delete your data. It pops back up, Incognis take down it again automatically. And if, like me, you already found yourself in some leaked database, the unlimited plan has custom removals. You send a link and a real person on their team takes it down for you. Incogni is the only data removal service whose work has been independently verified by Deloitte, confirming it really does delete your data and sees the request through. I'll be honest, automatic removal can do everything. It doesn't touch government records, social media or forums, but it gets the whole army of data brokers off your back. Use the link in the description with a promo code for 60% off annual plan. So how did Apple end up here? This fight is older than the Mac itself. Apple and the Apple II arrived when Apple was two people, Jobs and Wozniak. And Wozniak saw the computer as an open system. And that's exactly what the early Apples were. Jobs believed the opposite. In the 1984 Macintosh, a completely whole closed device. To crack the case open, you need a special tool. Jobs wanted to rebuild our relationship with the computer. It was meant to be something that just works, so you'd think only about the work, not about the tool. A pretty modern take on usability. Wozniak and Jobs have both been gone from Apple for a long time, but that segment lived on inside the company. As the Power Mac, later renamed the Mac Pro, and the trash can wasn't the first attempt to walk away from this audience and this idea. Before it, there was the Power Mac Cube with the same problem and the same backlash from users, which drove Apple back to the traditional modular tower. iPhone Pro, iPad Pro, AirPods Pro, everything's Pro now. The only Pro that didn't survive was the one built for actually pros. And plenty of people hear Pro and think power. But there is power to spare in the Mac Studio too, more than there's ever been. That part is perfectly fine. What set the Mac Pro apart was the very idea of your relationship with the computer, where you didn't have a finished little box, a utilitarian tool, but something you were in effect a co-author of. Machines like that could live for decades, evolve and grow old alongside their owners. That's completely different kind of relationship. For the first time in 40 years, Apple doesn't have a single computer you mean to open and change. A while back I tried to move to Linux once the Steam Deck came out. Gaming on Linux finally became a real option, and I figured it was time to try. I did. I forced myself to use it for a few months, then just got tired and went back to the Mac. But everything's different now. There are modern 3D printers, and there's AI, the most patient Linux nerd in the world, walking you through it step by step. Fixing some problems you got is only the first level. It can take you all the way to making everything great and fully your own. The level I never reached last time. The one where the real beauty of the open approach reveals itself. I brought up the 3D printer because you can make your PC case not just modular, but design it for yourself. And again, where there used to be no time for that because of the high barrier and the long grind of leaving the basics. Now you can skip straight past it, because when you make something for yourself, the imperfections don't just stop bothering you. They start to feel good, and there is no one you're accountable to. I printed this piece on 3D printer just to see the pattern in person. I never owned a Mac Pro. It looks really cool, and it's a shame Apple doesn't use this pattern anywhere anymore. I wanted wallpapers like it, and instead of drawing a couple, I built a tool that generates as many as you want. If that's not a perfect example of AI and 3D printing knocking down all sorts of barrier, I don't know what is. The tool is free, link in the description, go try it yourself. I don't know about you, but I ran a design studio for years, where everything had to be flawless. Maybe that's why I now get so much pleasure of any rough edge. And these two chapters of mine feel like a direct parallel to Apple's own earlier attempt to go closed, the trash can, which you could easily call the ancestor of today's Mac Studio. Back then, there wasn't enough power and the market wasn't ready to fully break from the historical idea. Because whatever you make of this company, it's Apple that sets more design and conceptual patterns in consumer electronics than anyone. And even pressure from a small slice of their audience can hit it hard. And now, with the DIY trend growing worldwide, and not for retro gear, with Linux slowly gaining ground while Windows sleeps, with AI around, maybe we just don't need a computer like this from Apple anymore. I mean, for the market, for the culture, for design, it's already played its part. It's played it well, They set the standard, they set the bar, proved that even a utilitarian professional tool can be really beautiful. Apple pretty much single-handedly pulled off several revolutions in the market, turning it into a true mass market. And forgive the grand tone, for me as a designer, Apple is of course one of the most important companies, as it is for any designer, simply for its influence on design. Which is why what's happening with the company right now feels to me not like a betrayal of ideas, but like a healthy separation. A few years ago, I wanted to leave Apple, that came from a destructive place. Now I just don't want to replace my perfectly good MacBook. I'd rather build a second computer for running local LLMs and, of course, for gaming on Linux. And funny coincidence, the very year Apple gave up its last open computer, I wanted for the first time in years to build my own. It's not only Apple that changed. We changed, our capabilities changed. And right now the whole culture of how we relate to our things, the culture of ownership itself is shifting. What is there to be said about? This is super inspiring and thrilling. I can feel it from conversation, from what's going on around me, that there is a more and more of us who actually care about what's owned and how it's made. I love this idea that chasing perfection and the closeness that comes with it isn't always the winning path, even scientifically. And I've got the proof. The story of a group of MIT scientists who, by radically simplifying their approach to robotics, accidentally created the robot vacuum industry. Go watch my video about that.